Hey guys, so in this video we're going to go over probably the best endgame setup for crossbow at the moment. This current version of the build has pretty much all the mobility you'll ever need. We also have the standard herald clear, so clear is amazing, especially with galvanic shards being a delivery mechanism for the heralds with all the chaining and forking and all that kind of stuff. I even have pierce in my setup right now, so it pierces as well. And yeah, basically the clear, pretty amazing, like S tier clear. Mobility 2 right now, we worked in the Temporalis chest, so mobility is S tier as well. And then also we are using the auto shock setup from my previous video. You can go check that out if you're interested in that. But basically we're using the Choir of the Storm so that we can use our shock burst rounds like just as it is, right? We don't have to set up any kind of shock because the Choir of the Storm amulet is going to be doing all the shocking. So all that combined is pretty much as good as crossbow is gonna get, I'd say. And the only thing that I would like to work on a little bit more on my setup, my current setup right now, is I would like to get more reload speed, because at the moment I'm just so fast blinking around that my crossbow or the galvanic shards just cannot keep up. Kind of, or not all the time, right? So that's one kind of improvement that I think you could probably easily fix that with more attack speed. There are ways to actually improve that, but anyways, in the current version right now it is a little bit slow, I would say. Okay, so this current version of the build is quite expensive. We're using Temporalis, and obviously this is quite expensive as well as all of the other items we're using. And at the current moment we are actually also running a Adorned setup, because this is going to be probably one of the better ways to scale your damage and defense at the same time on these kind of crossbow builds. The build itself is, I guess it is sort of like a stat stacker, but I like to call this sort of version a, how would you say, a hybrid stat stacker crit build. Because I think there are sort of two ways to build it. So you either go full attribute stack and crit as well. So I guess more focused on the attributes with all the attribute gear like Astramentus, the Regalia, and those kind of things, right? And when you invest in those kind of items, then it kind of locks you out of a lot of the quality of life setup that we're using, like with the Choir of the Storm or Temporalis, or if you want to go with the Queen of the Forest route. Those kind of options will reduce the effectiveness of stat stacking, because stat stacking, it's only really good, I would say, if you really invest into it, right? But even then, like right now I'm about like 400 int, 250 dex, and 116 strength. And these kind of stats are still good enough to get, a good benefit out of the Hand of Wisdom in action. And then after that, we can scale crit really, really insanely. Like at the moment, I have about 900% critical damage bonus in Hideout and a flat 43% crit chance. And this will go all the way up to about 95% or so, or 90-ish% when my Eye of Winter setup goes off in the Cast on Shock setup. So pretty insane to scale crit. And I think also crit is a lot cheaper, because a lot of the crit you get is just on the passive tree. There's so much like good crit nodes on the passive tree, and very easy to actually go and grab all of those and easily get around like 600 crit multi and I don't know, like 50 to about 60-70% crit chance, right? So definitely a lot more cost effective to do this hybrid kind of approach, and then you get to use all the nice quality of life setups. And trust me guys, damage is definitely not lacking. We can kill the T4 bosses in like 1 second pretty much when you have this endgame setup. Okay, so I also will have included a POB I was using before I did the Adorned swap, and I do also have builds that are not using the Temporalis setup, so they're quite a bit cheaper. There's some different I guess budget options on the Mobalytics page you guys can check out if you're interested, but pretty much all of the builds will sort of follow the same theme, pretty much using a lot like the Choir of the Storm for more quality of life, and basically just trying to remove some of the like clunkiness and awkwardness of using crossbows. Alright, so let's run a map. We'll just do the breach and then we'll do the map boss and see how it goes. Alright, there is a couple of things that I'm actually doing while I'm like doing a big mapping session. And first of all, so like I mentioned, the reload speed, I think I wish it could be faster. So one thing I'm doing is if I know I'm going to be mapping a lot, and pretty much actually just running my setup like this the whole time, because I'm not really even going and killing these like bosses and that kind of stuff, right? all the time, mostly just mapping. So I've just put the martial tempo in galvanic shards instead of the lightning infusion. And then what I'm also doing is I have a rarity ring, because now trying to get rarity, because if you're going to be mapping, you should get a bit of rarity, right? So if we take a look, we're at base like 29%, because I got rid of the rarity on my helmet because I wanted to have the big ES helmet. But if you get it on the ring with ingenuity, you can get quite a bit, right? So I have, this ring gives me like another, what, like 80 rarity or something. So now I'm like at 120-ish, and get more divine orbs pretty much. And then I also do have this other ring here, and I only actually use this sometimes if you roll a map with like monsters have like 200% ailment threshold combined with like, you know, 70-80% delirium, the chaining from the heralds can be not as good. So for those maps, if there is like a lot of breaches in the map, then I'll actually just put this on, but otherwise I just actually never use this. But anyways, let's run the map. We'll go find the breach and the boss and see how it goes. So pretty speedy, right? We'll try not to loot that much. Okay, maybe just get a little bit of loot, and then we'll go and just blink around. And you can see the galvanic shard, at least with my current reload speed, is sometimes like I'll be blinking around and then kind of like you get caught with your pants down, kind of like in the middle of reloading, right? But yeah, clear, pretty insane, right? And that's why I think like galvanic shards is such a good like delivery tool for the what do you call it? The heralds, right? Because it's mainly the heralds that are actually doing all of our clearing. Okay, let's go find the breach. Enough talking. Okay, where is the breach? Wait, there was a boss somewhere around here. Maybe we can go kill him off. On these reflect guys. Okay, well they're not a problem. Oh, there's the boss. And he's dead. Okay, we'll pick up the Vol Orbs. And maybe we can also get some Divine Orbs in this map. That'd be cool. Oh, there's the breach. Let's go get the breach. And like now with this setup, the build actually feels like a real build now, right? Before, like, you know, yeah, there is some like good damage you can get on crossbow, right? But it always felt slow. Like even you invest like tons of movement speed, it just felt slow, right? Compared to like a lot of builds. And I don't know, now it actually feels like actually playable, right? Wait. And yeah, we can actually go clear all of the breach. And we're done on this side, so let's go and like zoom over to the other side, see how this side's going. And get a bunch of monsters over here. And one annoying thing with Blink is you do get stuck sometimes. Sometimes it seems like I think that's the end of the breach, so let's just go over to the boss, but it's kind of hard to tell what you can blink over sometimes. And yeah, so like sometimes like this tree, I guess we can blink over this. Oh, it's the monkey. Okay, wait, we gotta actually focus up here. He might kill us. Okay, never mind. I'm actually not really used to this kind of full setup yet. I guess we'll go over the setup we're using for single target, but every now and then I push the wrong button and end up shooting my galvanic shards. Alright, so one of the best things about this build is the speed at which you can clear these like tower maps, right? So we can just kind of actually go through. We don't really even need to kill anything, but I guess we will just kind of do the essence, right? But we can just kind of blink around and easily get these, like, finish these annoying tower maps and get back to normal mapping, which is like really, really, I don't know, really nice in my opinion, right? Because I really hate this tower system and all this, and then, you know, it's just so annoying setting everything up, and then you got to run the band layouts, and I don't know, that's why I kind of wanted to even make this build in the beginning to begin with, because I was just so tired of all this, like, setup, right? And this definitely does kind of reduce the setup time. And where is this tower? So like this, if I was just running around normally, this map would have been taking like, you know, I don't know, 10 times longer than it is right now, or maybe even more. Alright, where is the exit? Alright, there we go. And see, like, yeah, sometimes it's kind of annoying. The blink is, you think you can kind of blink over something, but you can't. But anyways, yeah, really, really fast. Alright, so let's go do Mr. Xesht. And there is some weird spots in this area. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but sometimes like there, see it's like shooting at the ground. There's some definitely very weird things going on. But yeah, we can just go and like kill them off real quick. Very easy. Yeah, so I think this setup is going to be the best in terms of like quality of life, speed, clear, and then bossing, damage, everything in one. So definitely I'd say the best setup for crossbow at the moment. Alright, so let's go over the build and what we're doing with it. First of all, I think we start off with the gear, and there's a couple of things to note about the gear. First of all, we'll go over the body armor. Now, right now, this is one reason why I think Monk is going to be the best ascendancy for crossbow, is because of, first of all, spirit. In order to run all the auras we're running, first of all, I need to get enough spirit for my amulet, right? So I have, I mean, not my amulet, my body armor. So I have 344 from the body armor, and then we're also going to be using Against the Darkness with spirit on it as well, with 1, 2, 3 nodes, and that combined gives me enough spirit to run everything else. We need like a total of 180 to 190. And if you have 180, then you can't run the precision aura, which means you're going to have to get accuracy on your gear somewhere, which isn't really a big deal. But anyways, so that's that. And yeah, so any other ascendancy is going to have quite a lot of trouble actually getting the amount of spirit that you will need to actually run all these things. And you'd be like, well, why don't we just cut some stuff out? And it's like, well, what are you going to cut out, right? You need Blink, obviously, because you're doing Temporalis. Definitely don't want to cut out the Heralds, and that means leaves either cutting out Grim Feast or Wind Dancer, and both of these are, I don't know, I'd say pretty important defensively. So I guess you could make it work, right? Because you can do things like get an Iron Reflexes from nothing, right? And you can allocate like these nodes. There's another node you can allocate here, so you can get a bit more spirit. Or you could do a setup over here with the Against the Darkness and allocate these nodes and this kind of stuff. And it is probably possible, but you're going to have to go out of your way to do all of this, use extra passive points and all this stuff. So it's not going to be as effective on other ascendancies, I think. And also Monk does have very, very nice ascendancy points with like extra cold damage, helping your heralds, also the extra lightning damage as well. We have a very nice DPS boost from the Unbound Avatar, and we can even go into this Sunder My Enemies, although I haven't really found it needed because the amulet basically does the same thing for lightning damage. And then of course we get all of the free spirit. Could try to port this over to the, you know, like Witchhunter or Gemling, but I think at the end of the day, if you're going to be playing an expensive build like this, just go level a Monk, because it's going to be 1,000 times better than Witchhunter or Gemling or any of those other ascendancies. Okay, anyways, so that is the body armor. We go over the crossbow, and you notice that I'm actually using 2 crossbows right now, and kind of, okay, so let's go over this. So basically, I am just kind of lazy, and I want to have this cast on shock set up for Eye of Winter, and I guess Voltaic Mark. So in order to actually get this running, I don't have enough spirit, and I technically could, if I, you know, moved over some damage into points, you know, to get extra spirit and all this kind of stuff, so I could fit in the cast on shock, but I don't really think that kind of investment is worth it. So what I'm doing is just swapping weapons, and this actually took me a long time to figure out, and even just really dumb, but it's actually just mind-boggling how this actually works when you have 2 crossbows. I mean, it does actually make sense, you know, realistically, but basically, if you notice, we have 2 crossbow shots, right? And what happens is, like, I first thought that we have our crossbow shot, and then we just assign the weapons, and then when we push the load button, it'll just load it into this thing. But no, you actually have a crossbow shot for crossbow 1 and a crossbow shot for crossbow 2. So you actually have to have 2 buttons, which actually, it's not actually bad because, you know, WSD exists. If WSD didn't exist, then I wouldn't do this. But anyways, and the swap time doesn't bother me because there is a load. When you load the bolts in, there is a slight delay anyways, and that kind of, you know, works with the weapon swap. So anyways, basically just doing a weapon swap to a different crossbow for shock burst rounds, but this is actually completely not even needed. And you can just get rid of this cast on shock and you run Eye of Winter with Unleash and Arcane Tempo, and that's going to be pretty much the same thing, except you just push one extra button. And I was running that for a while. Actually, that setup does have some benefits too, because I guess your critical weakness stacks will just stack up instantly at the beginning of the fight, whereas for me, the boss is pretty much dead by the time the stacks are at 10 anyways. But yeah, so that is that. And I guess like the weapons, basically here right now, because I have so much crit chance, I'm just trying to focus more on crit multi and attack speed. I guess flat damage too is very nice, and then the elemental damage with attacks. But this kind of, you have to like, I guess it depends on your build, right? What kind of stats you want in your crossbow, but generally it's going to be crit chance, crit multi, elemental damage with attacks, attack speed, and then flat damage. As far as like priorities go, I would say. And the rest of the gear is not really much to talk about, except, you know, we're just getting a lot of energy shield, intelligence, crit chance if we can on the helmet, and then some resistances, and on the boots as well. Trying to get rarity as well if you can. I think the best place is on the boots. You could get on the helmet, but you're going to end up losing a bit of energy shield. So up to you. I think around 100% rarity is fine, and getting it on like a ring like we looked at before, like this one here on a ring, just when you swap over for mapping, is like fine for me. Okay, so for the amulet, we're going to be using obviously the Choir of the Storm for the auto shock setup, and this time around anointing the Subterfuge mask because it's just a little bit too far, and you know, I wanted to use my Thread of Hope for pure power because this thing is like, I don't know, it's like 20% more damage pretty much, and the Lightning Quick 2 is a decent damage increase. So just gonna anoint this because without this, we're basically not gonna have any flat evasion. You can see we actually don't have any flat evasion anywhere except a tiny bit on the gloves, and maybe if you had some on your rings. So all of our evasion is coming from the helmet. That's why you want your helmet to be a very high energy shield. After that, your rings are going to just be your standard attack rings. Like I said, we are not really focusing on stacking as much as some other builds would be, and so I think the flat lightning damage and increased is actually going to be a bit more value. And then I guess, but obviously if you can get stats, any kind of stat is fine, because we do actually need to allocate quite a bit of strength on this build. You can see here, even if I had strength on my ring, I could change all of these into int or dex or whatever. Okay, so let's go over the skill gems right now, and a lot of things haven't really changed from my previous setup with the Greater Lightning Bolt. I guess we'll just cover all of them here to keep everything in one video. So with the Lightning Bolt, it's still the same kind of setup with the Overcharge, Conduction, Considered Casting, and Spell Echo, so it hits 2 times. So you can see my Lightning Bolt actually has 500% crit damage bonus, and about 40% crit chance, which is like pretty good, I'd say. So basically, even though I don't have a lot of spell damage, the crit damage is kind of pulling pretty hard, I'd say, for this Lightning Bolt to get the DPS up. Okay, so Galvanic Shards, basically now, since I actually have quite a bit of damage, I would say, don't even really need that much damage on the Galvanic Shards itself, and right now, just more focused on how would you say, getting the clear better on this thing. So we have things like Nimble Reload. I actually added in Pierce as well, so they're piercing an enemy and then they fork, and then it'll ricochet from terrain if it, you know, if it can. So we have pretty good clear on this setup, and maybe you don't really need Pierce, you could add something else in here, but didn't really need the damage, and I think the coverage is a bit better when you do have a little bit of Pierce. Okay, so that is that. And then as for the Shock Burst rounds, so since we have a lot of crit coming in from the Eye Winner setup, the tooltip actually probably isn't really correct. It's probably about somewhere around double this, so like 600k I would say, when we're actually in combat. And so basically, your standard setup, I'd say, there's not really much to say about the Shock Burst rounds. Yeah, okay, so that is that. And then, so Cast on Shock, like I mentioned, I'm doing the double crossbow setup, which is, I don't know, it's like the lazy man setup. You do have to buy 2 crossbows, I guess, for this to work. But like I said, not really needed. You can just manually cast Eye of Winter with Unleash. That'll work out just fine. But I'm a little bit lazy. So the way I have mine set up now, I think I kind of like this setup because without investing in any energy gain from like outside sources like gems or on the passive tree, just with the impetus support, within 2 shocks, I can cast the Mark and Eye of Winter. Yeah, it goes off quite a bit, because I guess the greater lightning bolt is just shocking so often because we're critting so often. As soon as the first Eye of Winter goes off, it just gets crazy because the greater lightning bolt, the crit chance will go up from 40% to like 80% once the target has critical weakness. And then that kind of just loops, right? That crits more, it makes more shocks, and then we crit more from the what do you call it, shock burst rounds. That procs more lightning bolts, and that casts more cast on shock. So it's actually going off almost too much, I would say, with this current setup. And one cool thing you can do with the Eye of Winter to kind of help with mana is you can corrupt your Eye of Winter, because Eye of Winter requires level 13 gem, but if you corrupt it, you can get a -1 level, and that'll put it at level 12, and then it will cost like 10 less mana. So it's kind of nice. And then as for links, just using Inspiration and Scatter Shot, so it shoots out a bit more projectiles. Okay, after that we have our reload, we have our standard kind of Herald setup over here. I'll just kind of go over the links real quick for you guys, but you know, all of this is in like the mobilytics. And then in Blink, I have Second Wind, Ingenuity, although I probably don't need this in here anymore. I just kind of lazy, haven't really swapped it out. Then we have Arcane Tempo, so it's a little bit faster. And then Wind Dancer, we have Precision, Unbreakable, and Calling Strike. And then just Grim Feast. Okay, so that is the gems. Let's go over the passive tree right now. So basically the tree is the same as all my other setups, except we're just going for more jewel sockets. We're getting the Adorned. And now that we have Adorned, all of my Adorned jewels are going to be maximum energy shield, and then either crit chance or crit damage bonus. You kind of have to look in POB and see which one is going to be more DPS, because at some point crit chance is going to be better, and then at some point crit multi is going to be better than crit chance. Like I think around like 85 to 90% crit chance, getting crit multi is going to be a lot better. Okay, so that is that, and we can go take a look at some of the jewels. I'm still using the old Megalomaniac because it is pretty big damage increase. And yeah, all of my jewels are just like this, like crit chance, max ES. We have crit damage bonus, max ES. We have some more crit damage bonus, max ES. This one's a crit chance one, I think, yeah. And then another crit chance one. And another crit chance one. And we already went over the Against the Darkness, but we do need to have at least the Spirit roll on here to get enough Spirit to use all the auras. And then we're using the same Controlled Metamorphosis so we can get Pure Power and Lightning Quick. Okay, so that is pretty much the setup, guys. As far as attributes go, I found that going to 250, this probably depends on your build and how much attack speed you have. But let's go into PLB real quick. I think you want to be at around 20%, at least 20 attacks per second, right? So that's why I went to 250 dex, and it definitely does feel a little bit better, and this produced the best sort of like DPS results for me. As you can see, we're pretty much at like 90% crit chance, and crit multi and PLB is a little bit bugged, but anyways, it says we have 1,000, but we don't. So yeah, these numbers aren't 100% accurate, but I guess the whole reason that I actually do this kind of setup is because all of my other builds use this same config, and then I can kind of tell like, oh, you know, how good is it, right? You have to have some kind of baseline when you compare your builds you're making, otherwise you can't really tell if this is going to be good or bad, right? Okay, anyways, so this is the POB, guys. Nothing really special here, but you can see damage pretty insane. Energy shield, I can get quite a lot more energy shield, right? Like if I drop some damage, because I obviously definitely don't need as much damage, we can go get the energy shield to get like 5k ES. We can even pick up the int over here. There's more energy shield over here we can get, right? So you can cut out a lot of damage and pick up a lot more energy shield and get a little more tanky if you want, but I don't really think it is needed that much. All right, so let's go over the other setup. This one is not using the Adorned, and I think you only really want to go Adorned once you first of all have good jewels, and you don't want to be lower than a 60%, I would say. So maybe like a 60-70%. Oh, and when you're buying them, buy like, you know, a 91 is going to be exactly the same as a 90, right? Or a 93, 94, they're all the same as a 90. So right, so buy in increments of 5. I guess check in POB first, but for my setup, that's what it was. And yeah, don't really need a 95%, and going from 95 to 100 was only a like 2 to 3% DPS increase, so I don't think it's actually even worth it buying 100% Adorned. 90 or 95% should be a good top end goal, where with maybe a 60 to 70-ish on the if you're going on a budget Adorned setup. You can see one of the main difference is, like on this build, I have to really work for all my energy shield, right? I have to go pick up ES over here, go pick up ES over here, and a lot less energy shield, even though I'm picking up more energy shield nodes. And you know, we're even using the heroic tragedy, spending an extra point on acrobatics. I don't want to push it because it's kind of bugged, right? Because it's not the actual node. And so I just put this 1 point here. I mean, it doesn't do anything, right? It's just quarterstaff attack speed. But anyways, so we're using 1 point. You have to use the timeless jewel. And yeah, basically you have to work a lot for your defense on this non-adorned setup, so it kind of limits your damage. Whereas if you go adorned, you scale your defense and damage at the same time. So it's a lot more effective, I'd say. But yeah, basically exactly the same. And in this setup, the jewels you're going to use are just like, yes, crit damage, crit damage bonus, shock, or, you know, magnitude or elemental damage. All right. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for the build, guys. The planner and everything will be up on Mobalytics. You can go check that out, as well as both of the POBs. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.